All right, so we're back this week. Going to be back into the Sam Little case Scott went over. It was kind of a timeline that he did before. I think he's going to start diving us on into this story more of the actual trial, the murders, all the more of the juicy details that go along with this case. I am along for the ride with y'all. He has not told me any of this that's going on, so I get to be surprised with y'all. I will say after this episode at the end, or at the end of every episode, we're going to kind of put our channel news, updates, any kind of anything we want to share with y'all. We're going to try to put that at the end of these. So if that's anything you're interested in, hang out at the end just for a little bit extra news about what's going on, what we're planning on doing, what we're trying to do. But with that said, I'm going to hand the reins over to Scott. I'm going to let him take y'all on this wild ride of Sam Little.
Brent, that was a great introduction. and yeah, you're 100% right. Last episode, we basically went over his timeline of when he was born all the way up until he died, pretty much. All the times he got arrested. I mean, we're talking, dude was arrested over 100 different times, never served more than 10 years outside of after being convicted of his 3 murders. Always pled innocent on everything. And I've got one in particular case that I was actually able to really dive a little into detail and get some police records on it. It's all public knowledge, everything I'm going to be doing today. If you dive deep enough, you can find it in public records. But I mean, this literally took me a while to find just this one particular case because they're trying to keep things, I guess they're trying to keep things somewhat under wraps. But I do have the whole trial transcript of whenever he was arrested for the 3 murders in Los Angeles. And we're going to go over that. So to go back on last episode, we were talking about Guadalupe.
In Texas.
Right. That was not a murder in Texas. She was murdered in Los Angeles.
Oh, so Guadalupe was not Texas.
Not Texas. Murdered in LA.
Okay.
So before we get into this, I want to tell you that I have 5 FBI confession tapes of Samuel Little, and I'm going to let you listen to it. I've also got some video that I'm going to let you watch. They're like 2.5 to 3.5 minutes long a piece. And they're more for like educational purposes, I guess you would say.
The confession tapes that Scott's talking about, all of these will be over on Patreon. We were discussing the other week that we're going to be trying to get the Patreon up and going more. And everybody that comes over there, it helps tremendously. So we're going to start trying to give y'all extra stuff over there, and the extra research that we put in, we're going to try to put more of that stuff on Patreon. It's only going to be a $3 tier right now, $3 per month, and we're going to be putting all of our extra content there.
So the first one I want to talk about happened in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, I want you to know that we talked about in the last episode how Sam Little had a photographic memory. He can remember faces. He can remember names, where he killed, where he left the bodies, everything. The only thing that he struggles with, obviously, and it could just have something to do with his age, being 79 when he confessed to all this stuff, was the fact that he couldn't have accurate dates and he didn't have accurate distances. So in a couple of these instances, he was saying, oh, that happened in 1985, he could be off 10 years. The detectives found out that he was off anywhere from a year to 10 years in the span of what he thought is when it took place.
So in your research with this, did you find that, like, you said he's 79 at the times of the confession tapes?
Correct. Yes.
Was he still in sound mind? Was he there, or was he kind of in and out, or through your research?
I'm going to tell you from what I've seen and what you're going to see, the dude's all together.
Okay, so missing the dates is just missing the dates. It's just
right.
That's just probably
yeah. And his distances, like there was a couple where he would say, if you go this place and you walk 100 yards this way down such and such road. That's where I left her in the alley on the right-hand side, 50 feet in. Well, that alley was actually 4 blocks away from where he committed the murder versus, only 100 yards. So not 100% accurate, but close enough. And I think this might have something to do with the fact as to why they couldn't find some of the bodies like we talked about before. Brent, you asked me, was he able to put them on all the bodies? And I said, no, he wasn't, because of obviously natural decay and leaving bodies in the woods and all this and that. Decomp and all that takes place. But if we think about it now, knowing that he isn't 100% accurate on his distances, what if he told detectives, I only walked in 50 feet, but he actually went half a mile?
Yeah, they're close, but they can't get close enough to actually get on it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we're going to jump into a 1977 murder in North Little Rock, Arkansas, who was classified as a Jane Doe. All right. On June 27th, 1977, Fulton County Police responded to a person down call off of Oakley Road and Oakley Industrial Boulevard. Brent, I'm sure you know, and for the viewers, when EMTs and police receive a person down call, it can be a plethora of different things. I mean, it could be simply from somebody having low blood sugar and passing out to somebody being high on synthetic stuff and being dead. So when the police get this call, they don't know what they're going out there to until they get there, obviously. Me personally, the way that I read this, I don't think that the police were really expecting to have a dead body. I think they were more so just going out there because it took them a while to respond to this call. They didn't respond like the sirens. They're like, oh, person down, we're just going to ease on out. But when they got there, the person that called 911 was actually a Department of Transportation worker, and he's the one that found the body in the woods. What they were doing, the DOT was out there. They were clearing out brush and things, and he found this Jane Doe in the woods. So after police secured the scene, did all that stuff, they called the EMTs. They came out, loaded the body up, took the body to DFS, which stands for the Department of Forensic Science. They performed an autopsy on this woman, and the cause of death was strangulation. Now, I'll get into it because this one in particular, I didn't put the details in it because the same details in this one are what's in the next 3 that I want to go over. How they determined it was strangulation and how much force was being used, you'll hear, and it's crazy how strong this guy was. There was no identification on a woman. Nobody knew who she was. Nobody knew how she got there. All they know is her shirt was lifted up over her shoulders. Her pants were pulled down to her ankles, and she was missing a shoe. So they put her in Jane Doe because they have no way of identifying, can't pull DNA. She wound up remaining a Jane Doe for a total of 4 decades, Brent. From
decades?
Decades.
So it just went cold case for quite some time.
1977 to April 17th, 2019, nobody knew who she was.
And the only reason they found out is because of his confession.
Because he confessed
I take it.
Yep. And okay. We'll actually we're getting right to that. So there was a detective at Atlanta PD, part of the homicide division. She wound up calling Fulton County. The detective that was on this particular case name was Tracy Casey, and she was in search of details pertaining to the case that Little was admitting to. So during this confession, he's admitting, hey, this year, blah, 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 strangled a woman. I threw her off the side of the road at such and such. After she asked for any 1977 homicide cases that were cold cases or Jane Does or John Does, they went up sending a couple John Does. She said, okay, we know he didn't kill any men, so what are your Jane Does? And they had one particular Jane Doe who was a white female, wound up being strangled and dumped on the side of a road. They went up pulling the Jane Doe's cold case file. They sent it over through fax to Atlanta PD. Once he got there, the Texas Rangers, who had gained Little's trust, got the cold case file, went over it with Little, and he wound up confessing to everything. He's like, yeah, that's the woman I killed. And they said, okay, if we show you pictures, could you remember her name? And he's like, Well, probably. If you would show me what she looked like, yeah, probably so. So they showed him a picture. He wound up saying, I know exactly who that is. Her name was Leanne Holmes. Literally, the matter of 10 minutes is what it took for him to confess and come up with her name. And sure enough, it came back that the daughter had reported her mother in 1977 missing, found out she was dead 72 hours later, and it remained a cold case up until April 17th, 2019.
Now, I might be jumping ahead on this, but did I miss why? Where did he get arrested? Why do they have him questioning him at this point?
At this point, they have him because of the three murders that he was convicted of. Remember,
so this one right here is just one he's talking about after he's been arrested.
This is just a confession. This is all this is. Okay. One of his 93 confessions.
Nothing to do with where getting arrested.
Correct. He confessed to 93, but anyway. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Brent, do you want to hop into the trial now, or do you want to go over to some of the confession tapes? I got 5 of them. I mean, I think they're pretty freaking interesting. I think it would be cool to come in and listen to it now before we get into the trial, just so you can have somewhat of a background of how this guy's thinking before you listen to the trial.
Sure, let's do them. Let's listen to these tapes and then we'll carry on.
All right, I'm gonna swap it on over. You should have it on your screen.
North Little Rock. Tell me what that girl looked like.
You got it?
Oh man,
got it.
Loved her. I forget her name. Oh wait, I think it was Ruth.
Okay.
She was a heavy.
So you see how quick he knew the name?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna continue.
It said big old yellow hair and had buck teeth. It had a gap between the teeth. That's what it was. And she was like honey colored skin, and she had like her hair was not really long. It was.
How tall do you think she was?
She was about 5'7".
How much do you think she weighed?
She weighed about close to 200, about 170.
Pretty big girl.
Yeah.
Now, where did you meet her at?
Okay, down in the crack house. They heard about 6 other girls was sitting on the porch to do some crack in there. I stopped to go in there. I seen the girl. That's why I stopped.
Now, for further educational reasons, the reason he's at a crack house, one, we talked about this in the first episode. When he was younger, he wound up getting addicted to drugs and alcohol. He was an alcoholic and he was a druggie. So he also liked to attack and prey on crack house, homeless, prostitutes. So this is kind of like his home area. One, he was a cocaine addict. That was his preferred drug, was cocaine. And you'll see that in the 3 cases. But I wanted to go ahead and clear the air on that, just so you're not questioning why the heck is he at a crack house. That would be why.
Stayed together 2 days or more. I think about 3 days. We was going shoplifting. We went to Sears. We went to Kroger's, and that's where I got busted. Mm-hmm. They took me to jail, and she went and stayed in the car. And the manager of Kroger's, I guess he got tired of her laying on his property in that car. He called the station where I was at in North Arkansas to drop the charges. Mm-hmm. So he can come down and get this gal and car out of here. They cut me loose. So we was headed toward with that place where Walmart's.
So also in the first episode, me and Brent, we were talking about the fact that Mr. Sam here always got out of everything.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was waiting for this video to be over and be like, how many times can he just walk away?
Right. Yeah, he got away with a lot of stuff.
They just let me loose because they want me to move my car, move this girl. So they just cut me loose.
Right. Instead of getting a tow truck and, hey, let's just tow this guy's car. Nah, we just let him go. We ain't gonna press charges on him for shoplifting. It's not his first time shoplifting here, but it'll be okay. We call him a freaking flyer. All right, we'll continue.
An original stove bent. I whooped off the road and back into that little woods. It was a cornfield back there. I pulled through it, and on the other side of the cornfield was a trash pile. I parked the car facing out where I could see anybody coming in. So I pulled her out of the car. She's too big for me to carry her. So I just pulled her out of the car and laid on that trash that was lit there.
So was it like a cornstalk pile, or was it?
Yeah, a bunch of corn stalks.
What could you see from there?
I could see the highway, and in the woods is that way. But it's right outside of Little Rock. I was about 10 miles from it.
From North Little Rock, you think 10 miles?
Yeah, it was about 10 miles.
Okay.
Not only do we say, we're just going to cut you loose to get rid of them, we go kill the girl at the exact same time.
But yeah, to talk about that, he got out of jail, moved the car. As he moved the car with her, she did not want to leave. Something along those lines. She didn't want to leave. He said, we got to go. I don't want to get arrested again. Kept refusing. She's like, I'm going to get out. Before she could get out, he wound up killing her, propped her up in the front seat, then drove her to that place, and laid her on top of that cornstalk pile. Are you ready for the next confession tape?
I think so.
She was pretty, a light-skinned, brown, honey-colored skin. And she was she was about tall, she was tall for a woman, about 5'8", 5'9", and beautiful shape, and she's friendly.
And how much do you think she weighed?
She had a beautiful body, a beautiful 150, well put together.
And how old do you think she was?
She was about 30.
Okay. And she's a black female.
Yeah.
And tell me where you met her.
I met her in a nightclub in New Orleans.
Now, something else to talk about, Brent, is he met this one in particular in a nightclub. There's a couple cases where he did meet women in nightclubs or dive bars, hole-in-wall bars, anything like that. He met a lot of people in places like that as well. Not only just prostitutes and abandoned places, but crack houses, things like that. Also nightclubs, preying on folks that are already wasted and want to go party, have a good time. He's got drugs, blah, blah, blah.
Her and her sister she had two sisters. Her and her youngest sister was having a birthday party. Her sister was dancing with this guy on the floor. And when I come in, the girl that I was with offered me to dance with me. And while we were dancing, she says, you want to go riding after this, after this party's over? We walked outside and she looked and seen my car at Lincoln. She said, ooh, that's a beautiful car too. So she had arm in arm, walking to the car. We got in, stopped at the gas station. We were on the Highway 10 and going toward Slide L. I seen the sign say Little Woods. Mm-hmm. So I cut off, I took off the exit, went, and that sure enough was the road leading into the woods. And we went in and parked. So we finally got to where we were going, and it was by a bayou, a river, a little water thing, and the big, they had a machine out there in that little river.
Dredging?
Okay. I grabbed her by the legs and pulled her to the water. Mm-hmm. That's the only one that I ever killed by drowning.
Describe the location where she's left.
Okay, I left her with her head still laying in the water, half her body in the underwater, and her thighs and legs on the bank.
So tell me what you think about that one.
He is of sound mind. I'm convinced. Just listening to him talk, there's nothing by the way he speaks that I would think at all that he is not of sound mind. he remembers things. I mean, he is absolutely reliving these things daily, probably.
Oh, I guarantee it. But he's not. It's not like he's reliving it in a negative way, though. It's like he's reliving it. It's like that's just his fantasy, dude. Like this is what he lived for. Those things like this.
Yeah, there's nothing negative about this. When he's reliving all this, this is happy memories. This is the time of his life. He is
a monster.
Yeah, I mean he is absolutely. There's no remorse. There's no. I would love to hear him speak a little bit more on. He talks about like with her, he drove out in the woods and then he grabbed her by the legs and drug her out there. What was their deal? Were they going to a parking spot? You know, how are they not fighting? How are they? I mean, you know what I'm saying? What is the whole entire situation leading up to this? It's not like they just got out of the car and he reached down and grabbed her ankles and started dragging her.
No, I think this has the same thing to do with his whole MO, though. He finds a girl that he likes. He wants to capture her soul, pretty much. He says, okay, well, are we going to do anything? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. And when they say no, he would pretty much forcefully do it either way. And from what I read, sort of, it wasn't black and white on that aspect, but I guess what I'm inferring is if they would let him do what he wanted to do, he let some of these go. If they fought back against him and were very aggressive with him, he got more aggressive. He pretty much said, you know what? You're going to put yourself in a man's place. I'm going to take you out of the world, pretty much. But at the same time, what he's doing to these women is not appropriate. In any shape or form, what he's doing is not right.
No, absolutely not.
You ready for the next one?
Yep, go ahead.
All right. This one's going to be Miami, Florida, 1972. This one's actually really pretty good.
Tell me about Mary Ann.
She's what you nowadays they call a transgender.
She's a black male dressed up as a female. Okay. How tall is she?
Mary Ann's about 5'7", 5'6". She weighed about 135.
Okay.
Maybe 140.
And how old do you think she was?
But she was 19.
Okay. And where was she from?
No, Miami, down in Liberty City.
Okay. And did she, you mentioned before she had a boyfriend, or she talked about a boyfriend?
Named Wes.
Wes?
Yeah.
And tell me about where you met her at.
I seen her down at the Guar on 17th Avenue, and she had on a short cream miniskirt.
Mm-hmm.
Cream and red. So then this opportunity popped up. Mm-hmm. Take her to the store.
Right.
Instead of me bringing her back to the apartment, I went down 27th Street. That's going down to Fort Lauderdale, called the Alligator Alley. It runs in the Alligator Alley.
Right.
But the further out you get, the further you get out of Miami.
Right.
And you got vegetation.
Now, how far outside of Miami do you think you were?
It wasn't too far to Miami, right there. I was in my stepdad's car, Pontiac Le Mans.
Now, where did you take her to?
Continued down 27. Got back on 27.
Going outside of Miami. Okay.
Miami.
Going away from Miami.
Going away from Miami. We got down past the let's say limits. So I continued on toward Fort Lauderdale, and I seen a road going off the main road back into vegetation on the left side. So I got her out of the car, pulled her out, and drug her into the growth back there, and pulled her deeper into there's a path. A little path was running somewhere. I don't know where it led it to, but it was running deeper into the undergrowth. It's like Everglades like that. And we ran into some water running. But before we got to the water, the earth was mushy. I turned her loose, and she fell into it face down.
And how far outside of Miami do you think you were?
About a mile, 2 miles.
What year did Mary Ann occur?
72.
Okay, 1972.
So what I kind of gathered on the Marianne case was Little didn't want to kill this person in particular until he found out that she was a guy, and that pretty much set him off. Any thoughts on it, Brent?
I would love to know what the name of the bar was he was at.
That would be a good question.
Here's one right here. It looks like it'd be somewhere they were at. It's called the Bowville Bar, Bowvl Bar. I'm just scrolling down 17th. I'm going north on 17th. But I mean, like 17th is a big road. I don't know where he's at down through there. I know he said he left out of there going to Fort Lauderdale.
He left off 17 towards 27 and took 27 towards Fort Lauderdale.
27. If I remember right, 27 is the main road. Hold on a minute.
Yeah,
it's been
a
while
highway
since I've been down there. 27. So you're going to have to go back. 27's right here. 27 comes down. 27 pretty much runs to downtown. But you can take 27, come out of Miami on 27. I mean, that goes up and you can hit 75 and go back off into the Everglades.
More than likely, that's where he was at.
Yeah. Probably somewhere out in there. Well, I know he didn't go to I-75. He'd have been on some back road.
Yeah.
I think he said it was somewhere off of 27, but that's what I was looking for.
And for anybody that's curious and wants to see more, including yourself, there is a documentary on, I think, Netflix. It's called Confessions of a Serial Killer. And it's like 2 hours long worth of confession tapes and things like that on Sam Little.
Okay. So he took the transgender woman and did not know that he didn't have any clue.
Did not know that
they left?
that they were transgender.
Okay.
No, had no clue. So from just my inference here, that was one of the things that pushed him overboard.
Right.
But we are going to get into a Las Vegas, Nevada murder if you're ready for that one.
Yep. Let's go.
Las Vegas. Describe the Las Vegas victim.
That was in 93.
Okay.
I bought a Eldorado.
What color Eldorado?
It was a yellow.
Okay. Yellow Cadillac Eldorado.
Yep.
All right. What year?
78.
Okay. Well, tell me about this girl. What does she look like?
Classic car.
Kind of thin, dark skin, about 40 years old.
Yeah,
she
that's...
was out there hustling. I think she was a drug addict because she wouldn't have been out there.
How tall was she?
She was about 5'5", 5'3".
And how much do you think she weighed?
She weighed about 110, 120.
Okay. What about her did you know?
The boy came, that was her son. And she called him over there. And he came over, hey, he shook my hand and everything, yes.
Now, how old was he?
He was about 20 or about 19, 20.
Okay, black male or?
Black male.
And where were you at when you met her?
It was on Owens Avenue.
Okay.
Owens, that's down in the black section. Owens and Jackson.
Where do you eventually take her body to?
I was headed toward California.
Mm-hmm.
So as I drove out of Las Vegas, I seen a motel and a road leading up to the motel. And there's a lot of bushes and brushes us beside the road before you got to that motel. That's where I pulled up her body out and rolled it down there. And I heard a secondary roll of noise. That meant she was still rolling.
So you basically roll her into a pretty big ditch that's got a bunch of...
Well, it wasn't a ditch, it was a slope.
Okay.
That didn't look like a slope because the vegetation had grown up out of the slope and looked like you would think that the road would just be flat. Mm-hmm. But actually the road was going down, a slope like. And that's why she rolled.
So this is a slope right off the road?
Yeah.
Okay. And tell me about how far do you think you were outside of Las Vegas?
The road I was on was going towards Searchlight.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the name of that road is, that's the road I was on.
How far outside of Las Vegas do you think you were? Were you in Las Vegas?
I was still in Las Vegas, yeah.
Okay.
But I was on the very outskirts.
All right.
The very outskirts. There was a couple of motels I remember, gas stations, and they were scattered, because it was getting thin population as you go further out.
So, what's your thoughts?
How far did he drive with her body before he decided
It didn't specify. These particular cases, I spent 4 days trying to find more information on these particular cases, and I could not find anything on them.
Okay. Like you said, there is the documentary on Netflix, I think you said.
Yeah.
So, but I might wind up looking into that too, because his confession tapes seem like they'd probably be pretty interesting to go through more of them.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to him talk and how he carries himself, man, it's just like, wow, it's wild, honestly. We got one more confession tape.
Okay, let's roll it.
Hey, tell me about Northern Kentucky, the girl that you met in Columbus. So you meet this girl, I guess you're at a strip bar downtown Columbus.
I went on my car, and this white girl come out behind the building. And I'm in my trunk. She walked over to me, say, come on, y'all, can you take me to Miami?
Describe this girl to me. She white, black, what she look like?
She was white, blonde hair, dishwater blonde, they go. It's short.
Short, like shoulder length,
Yeah,
or
no, ear length, a little over the ear length.
like a bob?
Yeah, like a bob.
Okay, and how tall do you think she was?
She was about 5'7".
How much do you think she weighed?
She weighed about 130.
How old do you think she was?
Oh, she was about 25.
Okay, you mentioned before that you said she kind of had like this hippie aura to her.
Yeah, she did give you a hippie feeling. I think she was some kind of hippie, yeah.
So you go to Cincinnati, you mess around on Vine Street, and then eventually you guys both get in your car and you cross over the bridge into Kentucky. Tell me about going into Kentucky.
We got to Covington, and then we continued through Covington. Mm-hmm. And there was a park that they were having a festival there. And she heard the music and shit off of that band in there. And by her being a hippie type, she wanted to get to that. But the police came over and peeked in our car. We really wanted me to move out of there. So instead of going in there, I took her the other way.
Right.
Winding around, they got hills out in Kentucky, and the road winds around the hills. Mm-hmm. I seen a little short road going up the hill. Mm-hmm. And up top there was vegetation, wasn't no houses or nothing. And so I pulled up in there and concealed the car in that little vegetation up there on top of the hill.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about this road that goes up the hill. What kind of road is it?
It was like a dirt road.
Okay.
It was like dirt. The grass was growing in the middle between two tracks. When I left her up in that little road up there, on the side of that little road, she was like partially concealed by the vegetation. And I left her there.
That's all we got on that one. And boy, I tell you, I really wish I could get more.
Who are these confession tapes with? Is this just an interview, or is this police confession tapes?
This is the Texas Rangers that were interviewing him for the department or the FBI.
Do you know why he started confessing? Was it like a bargaining chip for him to confess to these, or was he's just freaking living it up and he wants to tell a story?
They told him if he confessed to his murders and all of the murders, any information he had, they would not give him the death penalty. They would just add life sentences to his sentencing. All right. So after those confession tapes, Brent, you kind of got an idea of how Sam Little was. He's very boastful of his stuff. Very intelligent, very smart guy as well. So we're going to jump into the court transcripts. What we're going to do is we're going to go over the 3 murder charges that he was accused of. And that's going to be the end of this episode. And then we'll pick up the rest of next episode where we get into more of the other stuff involved. Like we've got words from the detectives that were there. We've got some witnesses that He attempted, we got four. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we got 4 witnesses that he attempted to murder or he did things with and let them go. And then we've got a whole discussion afterwards that we'll jump into on next episode as well.
Okay.
So to get into the court trial transcript, we've got the murder of Linda Alford, and I'm probably going to read this verbatim just so I don't get anything wrong. On July 13th, 1987, LAPD officer Daryl Lee and his partner responded to a call about a dead body laying in an alleyway behind a residence on East 27th Street. Upon arriving at the location, the officer observed the body of an African-American woman naked from the waist down with her shirt pulled up over her bra. She was wearing only one sock and no shoes. None of her missing clothes were found in the alley. However, Lee did notice drag marks in the dirt. Now, the drag marks were right next to her feet, almost like someone had picked her up from the shoulders, drug her there by just her heels. It appeared to Lee that the woman had been killed elsewhere and her body had then been dumped in the alley. The dead woman was later identified as Linda Alford by her daughter. Dr. Irwin Golden, who's now retired, testified that in 1987 he was a deputy medical examiner in the LA County Coroner's Office. His autopsy revealed that the cause of death was asphyxiation as a result of manual strangulation. Now, this is what I was telling you we're going to get into earlier. These are the same things that they found almost consistent with all the cases. Alford had sustained multiple bruises near her jawline, hemorrhages in and around her eyes, and scratches and abrasions to her neck, some of which were caused by fingernails. Hemorrhaging beneath her scalp and temporal area was characteristic of a blunt injury, a blow or a bump to the head, and was consistent with Alford having been punched in the head. The autopsy revealed hemorrhaging to Alford's voice box and hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is a U-shaped bone that's at the base of your tongue. It's the bone that helps you swallow, just to give you an idea of what that bone is and how hard he was actually having to push down on this throat to break that bone. All of these injuries had been caused prior to death. There was a toxicology report that was ran on Alford, and it showed that she had consumed alcohol and cocaine prior to her death. DNA analyst Amanda Mendoza from Bode Technology Laboratory testified that in 2012 she tested a sexual assault kit and clothing, which was the bra and the t-shirt of Alford's, and compared the DNA from Alford's blood and DNA from a buccal swab taken from the inside of Little's cheek. Semen was detected on Alford's shirt. The epithelial fraction of the shirt sample contained a mixture of DNA from Alford and Little. There was no evidence of DNA from a third person. The sperm fraction from Alford's t-shirt DNA sample matched Little's DNA. Now, she went in and said Little's African American, and the odds of a match were 1 in 450 quintillion African Americans for it to match up. She testified it would take approximately 64 billion planet Earths to find this DNA profile one time.
So what she's saying is she was pretty sure that's him?
Without a shadow of doubt, pretty much. The right and left cup brassiere area samples contain a mixture of 3 or more persons, including Alford and at least one male contributor. Male contributor's DNA profile was consistent with Little's profile. Now, I was telling you that she tested the epithelial sample of a shirt. Epithelial cells are cells that are found in the body, whether it be blood, saliva, urine, sweat, skin cells, bodily function, or fluids. Anything like that, they are all considered epithelial cells. So that's the first. That's Linda Alford. Now we're going to get into the murder of Audrey Nelson. On August 14th, 1989, former LAPD detective Richard Santiago and his partner responded to a call about a homicide at a parking lot behind a nightclub and restaurant located at 2019 East 7th Street. Inside a dumpster, they found the body of a Caucasian woman naked from the waist down with her sweatshirt pulled up above her shoulders. Starting to see some kind of trend here, right?
One shoe?
Well,
seems like every single time it was one shoe.
One shoe or one sock, yes. The back of her body had dirt and her upper shoulder had some drag marks. So he killed her somewhere else and drug her there. A search of the vicinity recovered no identification, clothing, or any other personal belongings associated with the victim, who was later identified as Audrey Nelson. Crime scene photographs showed drag marks on Nelson's back, buttocks, and heels. Detective Santiago opinionated that Nelson had definitely been murdered elsewhere, and her body subsequently was dumped at the scene. Now, they on cross-examination, Santiago testified that at some point he came into possession of 2 rings, which he gave to the medical examiner for comparison with the marks that are on Nelson's neck, and neither one of the rings belonged to Little. I don't know if he just found them in the alleyway and he thought maybe this is some kind of clue as to who this person might have been that killed the person. Medical examiner who performed the autopsy was Dr. Eugene Carpenter. He concluded that the cause of death was strangulation. Nelson had suffered significant bruising around the front of her neck, which included fractures to the thyroid cartilage and hyoid bone. Once again, that is a lot of pressure.
Yes, it is.
Severe hemorrhaging to the throat muscles and fingernail marks on the right side of her throat. The amount of force required to sustain such injuries was considerable, and the strangulation appeared to have been done by hand. Injuries throughout her body revealed pre-death blunt force trauma consistent with having been punched repeatedly in the head. We talked about this in the first episode that he liked to, if he couldn't knock you out with one punch, he was pretty much just going to beat you unconscious.
Right.
Nelson suffered severe bruising underneath her skin. This bruising extended into her chest muscles, stomach, and abdomen. In addition, the hard bone of her spine, I don't know which bone that would be, was crushed during a blow to the upper central abdomen. So he hit her in the stomach and broke her back.
Right.
That dude's got some freaking force behind him. So to claim himself a prize fighter boxer, I would have to say so.
Maybe so.
Self-proclaimed.
Maybe so.
It also gave deep bruising to the interior of the stomach itself, which was a sign of considerable force, even possibly being hit with a 10-pound sledgehammer as hard as possible.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of force, dude. Like, that's Mike Tyson type strength. Abrasions on Nelson's back, abdomen, sides, knees, and thighs were characteristic of road burns, which they assumed was being drug across a hard surface. A toxicology report revealed the presence of cocaine in Nelson's blood as well. There was a severe injury to Nelson's stomach area. According to Carpenter, this area right over the hard bone of the spine was crushed during a blow to the upper center abdomen, and with deep bruising to the stomach itself. I guess he was just reiterating that. He was asked again, so he reiterated that. In terms of signs of blunt force, it's a sign of severe injury to the abdomen. The significance lies in that it's a sign of considerable force. Based on the fracture of bones in Nelson's throat and the extensive hemorrhaging, Carpenter testified, "These signs of force are the greatest that I have seen in a 27-year practice in a county which has its share of strangulation cases. This stands out because of the amount of hemorrhage at the throat, the fractures, and the fact that there are no petechial hemorrhages, which is a sign that even the arteries were occluded, not just the veins, which is the usual course of events." So think about it. Your artery is the biggest vein in your body.
Right. Right.
To close off your arteries in your throat and not leave any sign of anything else except like boom, like that's almost like you got a rope, you clove hitched it and you tied it as tight as you could around your neck and pulled as hard as you could to cut complete blood flow off from everything.
And to strangle somebody and kill them, it's not fast.
No.
It's not. Now, they will pass out. You're going to pass out fairly quickly. But to kill them, that's not fast.
No, it's not. Passing out, you just have to have lack of oxygen.
Right, because when somebody falls out, if you were to strangle somebody, when they fall out, after they lose their oxygen, they're going to pass out. But after they do, they're not dead. If they quit, then they're going to regain consciousness.
Correct.
So it's one of those you have to be dead set determined. That's what you want to do is kill this person because there is no fight after that.
Yep.
You're going after killing them at that point.
Correct. Carpenter also testified that there was a special injury to the front part of the neck. This is a patterned injury. He explained it was an injury consisting of abrasions, but it has a pattern to it. So it's consistent with a belt buckle or a brass ring in a strap or something like that. So there you go. That kind of answers your question. This wasn't strictly by hand. And he did have cases where he got an electrical cord and he strangled people with an electrical cord. Maybe he got his belt off after he found out that he wasn't killing her with his hand, so he got his belt off and just held it over her throat. It's not specific, but it's got structure, and so it was measured just in case there would be some sort of comparison later. In 2011 and 2012, Molly Megahee, 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 DNA analyst at Cellmark Forensics, received a sexual assault kit and a fingernail kit relating to the death of Nelson. The fingernail kit contained both scrapings and clippings. DNA analysis and the sperm fraction taken from the sexual assault kit vaginal swab matched Nelson and an unknown male. Little was excluded as a possible contributor. But DNA analysis of the fingernail scrapings was inconclusive due to an insufficient amount of DNA. Fingernail clippings from Nelson's right hand contain a mixture from Nelson and an unknown male. Fingernail clippings from Nelson's left hand, however, tested positive for blood and were found to contain DNA from both Nelson and Little. The odds of this male DNA profile being someone other than Little was 1 in 58.68 quadrillion.
So again, we're fairly certain that's going to be him.
Yes. Now we're going to get into the murder of Guadalupe Apodaca. On September 3rd, 1989, LAPD officer Jesse Soltero responded to a call about a homicide at an abandoned auto repair shop at 4316 South Ascot Avenue, that's spelled A-S-C-O-T, where a body had been discovered. The body was naked from the waist down, lay in the interior of the garage area among debris. There was a white shoe near the body, but no other clothing or any identification at the scene. Officer Soltero observed bruises on the dead woman's neck and abrasions on her buttocks. The victim was subsequently identified as Guadalupe. The medical examiner, Christopher Rogers, determined that Apodaca died as a result of manual strangulation as well. She had sustained abrasions and bruising to her neck and around her throat, fractures to her larynx and hyoid bone, tiny points of bleeding on the eyelids and whites of her eyes, which means that she was like really under pressure there. Bruises around her eyes and nose, and a laceration on her lower lip. These injuries were consistent with significant pressure having been applied to her neck. Bruising on her tongue suggested that Apodaca had bitten down on it while possibly suffering a seizure during the strangulation process. Abrasions on her neck had curvatures characteristic of fingernail marks. Bruising on Apodaca's chest was consistent with someone having kneeled there while strangling her. Bruises and abrasions on her right leg and around her knees were consistent with her body having been dragged prior to death. Bruises to Apodaca's forehead and around her eyes were consistent with blunt force trauma having been inflicted on her face and head. She had likely suffered a sexual assault as well, based on the presence of blood in the anal cavity and perineal abrasions. A toxicology test revealed that the presence of cocaine and alcohol were in her blood. So there's another kind of, all three of them have cocaine in their system. Was Little's drug of preference, cocaine. Rogers testified he had also reviewed the autopsy reports from the Nelson and Alford deaths, and he noted that the following similarities. In each case, the deceased person was a woman of a particular age between 35 and 46. They had all been strangled manually. They all had blunt trauma in addition to the strangulation. Each of them was nude from the waist down when they were originally found. The deceased were all found in South Central Los Angeles, and they all had cocaine in their blood, and 2 of them had alcohol. Jennifer Sampson, a DNA analyst at Bode Technology, testified that Little's profile matched the major contributor to the DNA found on 2 shirt cuttings taken from Apodaca's body. The probability of these matches in the United States African American population was respectively 1 in 1.6 quadrillion and 1 in 450 quintillion. So once again, pretty certain that that's a match for Little there.
Yeah, it's starting to sound like it.
So Brent, I think we're going to end it there, and we're going to pick up on this shortly. We're going to go over on, like I said, next. We're going to go over a little bit more detail on some of the police crime scenes, some of the witnesses, and next episode is going to be pretty good as well, Did you find that this one was as good as you were hoping it to be?
I really did. I still just can't fathom the amount of times that he just gets to walk off from things that he did, things that he does, and the way that he is in the videos that we watch, the way that he just relives all this in his mind. I mean, he's happy as he can be. He's reliving these things, which that's a common thing we see over and over with different cases also, is when they're caught and they want to go over and talk about the things they did or confess to other ones that they hadn't found, they kind of see it as I don't know, like they're receiving some kind of award, and it's their speech they're giving. It's a very proud moment for them.
Yeah, I agree. I've really enjoyed this. I don't know if that's a good thing.
How have you felt about the research on this?
The research on this particular individual has been very interesting, kind of disturbing.
Hard to walk away from?
But very hard to walk away from.
Right.
Almost very similar to the case that you did on Cody, where it's just so twisted that it's so hard to walk away from.
Right.
And I'm sure we're going to have a lot more of these that are going to be like this, but that'll be for another day. So do you want to go over the process we're at right now with everything that we've got going in the background?
A little bit of channel news, channel updates. We are working on some merchandise. We have gotten one sample back. We're getting the logo worked to actually print better on the shirts, I guess we'd say.
Yeah.
So we're working on some merchandise. That's going to be the first thing that's going to come up is the skull logo. Couple renditions of it will be on there and be available. We look very forward to actually putting this out there for anybody that wants to help support us and buy merchandise. We're quite anxious. I'm probably more anxious to get some of this stuff out than at some point in time than other people are to see it. But I'm
gonna be honest with you, Brent. I'm excited to get my first shirt and be able to represent.
Yeah. I got the sample, so I'm the only one with the shirt right now.
Yeah,
and I wore it out the other night.
Yeah, you did. We're also trying a couple companies before we make a executive decision on what we're going to go with. We want the best products for the best price.
Correct. That's one of the big things I want is a good product at a good price, and we don't want y'all to be able to go buy anything that's just going to be crap. So that's the biggest thing right now is we're wanting to get samples. We're wanting to see what the samples are, try them out, some of the stuff like that. So we really plan on having some merchandise out really, really soon. I would want to, I'd be lying if I told you a timeline, but I would love to have it available for y'all to go see what's there, hopefully within a month. I really, really hope that. Besides that, that's the only real channel news that updates that we have right this second. We've already spoke about the Discord. I don't want to be that person that's just harping on stuff over and over. Y'all know about it. We appreciate y'all. Part 3 of the Sam Little, we will put it on the Patreon channel first. So if anybody wants to be able to get both of these parts almost back to back to each other, they will be on there pretty quick to each other, so you won't have to wait the 2 weeks to actually hear the next one. And besides that, that's pretty much it. I've enjoyed where we've gotten, the Scott's research of where he's gotten on this case so far, and I just want to tell you, everybody that's here, hey, thank you. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you hanging out. Like, comment, all that kind of stuff helps us out a ton. So we'd really love to see all that, and we will be back with part 3 very, very soon. And with all that being said, we thank you for being here, and I hope you have a great night.